So let's look at some common HTML elements. There are three necessary elements, namely HTML, body, and head, that can be only used once in a page. That's because they provide the base structure. But most other elements can be used multiple times on a page. And there are a few elements that show up in nearly every web page created. So let's take a look at some of them here. The paragraph element is one of the most common elements, and as you might guess, it defines a paragraph. As with print media, a paragraph creates a line break below it to visually separate it from other paragraphs. This is used to emphasize a semantic separation of content. The same structure is used in a novel or a magazine. Elements that create this spacing below themselves are called block elements. Block elements appear vertically down the left-hand side of a page, at least until they're styled by CSS. Paragraphs and headings work in concert to create the majority of the text content of a web page and its structure. Now, HTML has 6 heading elements, which are numbered 1 through 6. H1 is the most significant and usually contains the title of the content, not to be confused with the title that appears in the browser tab we mentioned earlier. H2 represents a subsection. H3 and so on represent identifiers of further subsections until we get to H6. Now, headings are also block elements. Now, inline elements are elements that don't cause a line break below their display. Take the example shown. There's an emphasis tag and a strong tag for italicizing or emphasizing and making something bold. Now, the reason why they don't introduce a line break below is that you may want to emphasize or make bold some text within a paragraph in order to stress particular words or phrases. And you'll most often not want to add a line break below the stressed text, just as you wouldn't when writing a regular document in Microsoft Word or similar. Element start tags can also have attributes. An attribute is composed of the attribute name, optionally followed by a value. Now, an attribute is used to select between different options of an element function or to provide extra information about what that element does. We'll see later how CSS targets these attributes in order to style the elements. Some elements need to have at least one attribute to be of any use. The famous hyperlink element, also known as the anchor, has an attribute that contains the address of the HTML resource that it links to. In HTML content, links that are supposed to be interacted with use the anchor element. The anchor element defines an anchor, or a specific part of a page that can be linked to. And a link ought to go somewhere, so it needs an address. So to use the anchor element as a link to another page, we use the href attribute, which will hold the address of where it needs to go to. The href attribute has as its value the location of the page or resource we'd like to link to. In the example shown here, the link, when clicked, will take us to google.com, and in particular Google's default or homepage. The image tag is used to define an image on a page. We use the source attribute to link to an image either on our server or somewhere else on the web. The image also has what's called an alt attribute. It's also considered best practice to include an alt attribute value on any images you use. This is because the alt attribute will display any text within the attribute. If the image doesn't load, or if a vision impaired user is using a screen reader to visit your site, the screen reader will read the alt tag, so put a description of the image you're adding in this attribute. Another common textual feature is a list. Lists can be divided into two types, ordered and unordered. Unordered lists display as bullet points. The order of the bullet points is deemed unimportant. An example might be a list of ingredients in a recipe. If the order of list items is important, then we use an ordered list. By default, the ordered list will display in numerical order with the first item numbered 1, the second 2, and so on. But these can be customized to use letters or even Roman numerals. An example of the use of an ordered list might be the preparation of the steps required for the recipe. Now, lists can also be nested within each other. Nested lists are a good match for the sections and subsections of a website. Neutral elements, such as a div and a span, are also included. Not everything can be marked up as semantically as a paragraph or as emphasized text. Sometimes an element is needed to group other elements or to allow other information to be attached to a part of a document. Div and span are intentionally semantically neutral. That is, they don't mean anything in themselves other than helping to identify structural areas on a page. But they can be given meaning through the use of CSS, which we'll see later.